Hey friends, welcome to the second season of So, What Makes You Come Alive podcast, inspiring conversations with everyday humans like you about what lights them up. We're your hosts, Gabe the Girl
and Michaela McGee, and this season, we're continuing to explore what it would look like to take ownership of and change the narratives of our lives to live a life fully alive.
Hey everybody, and welcome back to So, What Makes You Come Alive podcast. I'm Gabe the Girl.
And I'm Michaela.
And Michaela is going to introduce some very special, close to the heart, maybe close to home guests.
Yes, indeed. I am super excited to have my cousins on this week. They are some of the most awesome people that I know, just like adventure seekers, super kind, very fun to be with. And not that I'm biased at all, but they really are just awesome. Straight up awesome people. This is my cousin who is 9 years younger than me. And I just feel like, I know that I keep saying this, but like genuinely one of the coolest people that I know. And I'm really grateful that I have gotten to know her in her adulthood. And then she married a super awesome guy and they are doing awesome things together. For example, van lifing right now. I'm so freaking excited to have them on this podcast because I like just hearing her story is something that really actually lights me up. So I'm going to hand over the mic to the two of them. Do you guys want to share a little bit about who you are?
Sure. I'm Ashley.
I'm Clay. Hello.
We're Michaela's cousins. We were originally from Lawrence, Kansas, but we've been living in a van since September of last year, right after we got married. We drove away into the sunset to Washington to get married, and we've been traveling around since then. We're currently in Wisconsin, right? Yes, yep. Wisconsin at Devil's Lake State Park, sitting on the beach talking to you guys. So,
oh my gosh, that sounds amazing.
That's right.
Is this your first time in Wisconsin?
No, when I was like 14, my dad and I biked north to south. I don't remember specifics about the trip, but I remember it was really pretty. There's a lot of cool lakes. So I guess I have been here. That was a long time ago, but
and I have not.
Yeah.
I've never been here.
When I think of Wisconsin, I think of cheese. So
yeah,
there are a lot of farms, like very stereotypical. It's like rolling hills, red barn, big silo, like
nice.
Yeah.
Are you guys eating a bunch of cheese while you're there?
No, but one of our like standard snacks is mozzarella, like string cheese. Like, so we do eat a lot of.
But that's from Sam's Club, not from Wisconsin.
Yeah.
It could be from Wisconsin. Who knows?
It could be. It very well could be.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
How many places have you guys been to since you guys rode off into the sunset and started living this way?
It's a good big places. We went Washington, Washington to Moab, Utah, and then over to San Francisco, down to San Diego, and then a little bit in LA for like a day, and then we drove to Chicago from there.
Whoa.
In November, and it was cold. That was a rude awakening. And then we went home for a couple weeks and did Christmas, and then this spring we went down as far south as we could go. We went down to Brownsville, Texas, and then we went up the Mexican border, like through Laredo, and then up into El Paso, and then up into Phoenix, Arizona, and then Sedona, Flagstaff, Albuquerque, back home. We flew to Alaska with my family and did a Disney cruise for a week. We just got back from that, and then we loaded up the van, and now we're in Madison.
Wow.
So that's a brief overview of the last 8 months.
I know. Did you guys? Now I'm so curious. I don't know.
Mhm.
I follow like a lot of van life accounts and things.
Yeah.
Final question I'm going to ask about this, and we'll let you guys get into more of the things and talk about what makes you come alive. But did you guys build your van yourselves, or did
No.
you buy a van? Okay. All right.
We put a lot into it. So we bought it. It's a very simple van. It's basically just a bed and a kitchen for like all intents and purposes. We added the solar, which was an endeavor in and of itself as far as like the electrical and like rewiring some things. So we did do some of it,
Mhm.
but the woodwork and the cabinetry and the basic setup was all a wonderful man named Tom in Michigan. Yeah.
Well, thank you, Tom, from Michigan.
Yeah,
Yes.
seriously.
For the adventure mobile.
That's right.
So I love what you guys are doing already. Michaela's been telling me about you guys for months now. She's like, we got to get my cousins on to talk and like to share on the podcast. It would be so awesome to hear from them. So we would love for you guys to share more just about what makes maybe each of you come alive. Just, you know, and the things that you do a lot, like do in life, but maybe also some things that together make you guys come alive as a couple.
You can start.
Coming alive, this is like a latent effect of being in the van. It's really cool to see people that have thought about this lifestyle, but haven't taken actual steps or haven't taken serious steps towards it. And seeing people that are, at least I think we're relatively normal and we do it, it makes it more obtainable than what you see on like we follow Kara and Nate, wonderful travel couple, and it's like a very picturesque thing. And we're not necessarily that, and so it's a little more down to earth, and it's cool to talk to people like that and see them get excited about the possibility of living something a little bit more on the fringe. So that's super cool to see, and it's nice to have those long conversations when people ask nitty gritty questions about the back end of van life, because it's not all like sunshine and roses. There's a lot of like tough stuff that goes on. So it's cool to talk about those and see people get kind of inspired by it, whether they go and pursue van life or just decide to take like a weekend away. It's really neat to inspire others. So that's fun.
Yeah. I really like, with the van specifically, just being able to have the freedom and flexibility to kind of go wherever we want. If we don't like an area, we'll just leave right away. And if we love it, we'll stay for an extra week or two. And it's really cool. I have a big travel bug and I've always had one. So it's nice to just be able to pick up and go whenever we're ready. And if we need to go home, we're only like 8 hours and we can drive and we can be there. It's not like we have a lease on something or we're renting an apartment and we have to, get someone to watch it while we're gone. We just take everything with us and we go. I think that's a lot of fun.
Yeah.
It is. I mean, it just sounds so freeing to just be like, okay, where to next?
Yeah.
It was cool to see when we left for this trip. We were finally like at ease with, we could just disconnect really quickly. Like we'd been living in the barn for a couple weeks and we'd gone on the Alaska excursion. But it was super easy to just pick up everything and we were gone in that afternoon. Even though we were going to be gone for 4 months, and that's usually like a very daunting thing. And so there's a lot less like baggage holding you back from making these kinds of decisions, which is super nice.
Yeah. It's a really nice hybrid of like a short-term vacation and like moving somewhere long-term. It works really well for us.
That's such a cool way to think about it too. And I love even what you were talking about, Clay, that like you get to be an inspiration for people. Like you guys are not like that next level influencer status on Instagram that we can all watch and dream about and say, how amazing is that? But like, I could never do that. You are that one step in between that is like, oh, maybe I could do that. Like, I think just being real and thinking about how many people you guys are inspiring by following this passion, by following this dream and excitement and like a life that is fully alive. There's so much, I don't know. I constantly talk about the ripple effect, but like you guys deciding to do this is rippling out in so many ways, whether you can see it or not. But I think that there's a huge piece of you guys being an inspiration to like those people who might be a little bit afraid to take that leap of faith and trust that like maybe I could do it too.
Yeah. One of my favorite things is when we go home, there'll be like a couple people that come up to us and they talk about how excited they are to look at all of our stories on Instagram and see all the posts that we make. And it's not really something that we do so other people can see it. It's more for us to look back on later. But it's really cool that people do follow along and like, you know, they, yeah.
I do too.
They love seeing what we're doing, and it's cool to share. So
yeah, totally.
So,
I mean, for anybody, just real quick, a little plug at follow Stan the Van.
Oh,
If you want their adventures. Real life, down to earth people having
we can
van
make
life
it 200
adventures.
followers. We can do it.
Yeah. I'm already following.
Nice.
But can you talk us through a little bit of like how you guys came to make this decision?
we were visiting you, Michaela, when it happened.
Oh.
This was all planned on a very exhausted trip to Vermont.
March of 2021.
Yeah.
We
had started dating, and we both like to work out a lot, and so we worked out too much together. Oops. And on a whim went to go see Jimmy and Michaela up in their little escape condo.
Yeah.
Jay, Vermont, was that where it was?
Yeah, nice.
Okay. Thank you. And yeah, we were like exhausted, and we were talking about like what's sustainable and what's not. And Ashley asked if I would ever consider living in a tiny van, which I had not really considered. And so we kind of outlined what it would take and what it would be like in between like 12-hour stints of sleeping.
You did sleep so much on that trip.
I felt so bad.
Sleep like 12 hours, and then we would wake up and you would make sourdough waffles, and then like come like 11 o'clock we would go back to sleep. And yeah. Oops. But out of that came this. So we talked about it, we kind of laid out a plan, and I had just started school to finish a degree. And so there was a lot of like, I needed to finish school and like jump through some hoops for that. And we'd originally planned it for this year, or what would have been this year. We were gonna start. And then Ashley's boss during like a meeting was asking, you know, what her goals were and what her plans were, and she described it. And he had asked like, what's holding you back from this year? And so she came home from the meeting and was like, could we do it sooner? And so we marked out what it would take. Like we did a lot of number crunching and just seeing what the possibilities were. And it was like, okay, cool, let's do it. And so we just kind of took the plunge.
I think by May we had the van. So this was like Clay started looking at like secondhand van websites or something, and we found one that we kind of liked and messaged the guy. And he was in Michigan, and we were like, can you hold it till June? And he was like, no. So we just like drove up there that weekend and picked it up. It was a very like spur of the moment, but also calculated decision that we made.
Yeah. We took a couple practice trips in the van. And then so that was all 2021. And then 2022, I finished school. We packed up everything from the house, got rid of a bunch of stuff, moved into her parents' barn. And then I got off the ambulance like beginning of September was my last shift. And then we got married the next weekend.
Wow.
And then we had a party, and then we drove away after the party. So it was, a lot of planning, I think, as far as what the original question was.
Clay had like a countdown app, and there were like 17 events of like last day of school, last day of work, last day in my apartment, last day in the house, last day in the barn.
Wow.
It was like all these things that were just leading up to us leaving.
Amazing.
A lot.
Yeah, man. So many. I love that story. I mean, I've heard it a bunch of times, but it still is like, it's just really fun to hear that. And again, I think it goes back to how like anybody can really do this. You have to do the thing. You have to take those little action steps. And I think on that note, like acting from that place of inspiration, what is it that actually inspires you or encourages you to live a life that lights you up?
You might as well, I'm doing okay. Uh, for me, I worked on an ambulance for 6, almost 7 years. And it was a very fulfilling job. Like you get to do a lot of good, whatever. Um, but at a certain point, like I would work a 48-hour shift. So it's called a 48-96. We were at work for 2 days and you'd have 4 days off. Which is fun when you don't do that much, but then like COVID happens and all of a sudden we did a lot of stuff.
Mhm.
And there was definitely a wake up call of seeing people. Like I ran one lady whose mom, dad, husband, and brother had died in like a 2 month span.
Oof.
And she was like in her 50s, like she wasn't that old. And like stuff like that would happen all the time, like through, beginning of like whatever, March of 2020 through the whole summer. And it was like a big wake up call of like, okay, I want to give back and I want to be like serve others on the ambulance, but at the same time, like, am I gonna wake up at 50 and have something like, and all of a sudden just like everything's gone? And what is that gonna be like? And then so selfishly, it's like, what do I want to do for myself and like for my future family? And the gears start turning. That's why I decided to go back to school and kind of switch gears to see if something else would open up other opportunities. And so that was like a big wake up call, inspiring thing to like, okay, cool, let's go live my life for me. And then I don't know, some sort of magic happened and Ashley like appeared in my life as a partner. And we both wanted to, be 10 feet from a lake or be able to kind of cut loose and go do stuff together. And luckily we like to do as much as possible together or within, a pretty close vicinity. So it was easy, I think, once the idea was posited, it was kind of like, okay, what do we need to look at to make this happen? And we were very motivated to then jump through whatever hurdles we needed to, as big or small as they were. So, yeah.
Mine's pretty simple. I like to see new things and I get bored really easily. So doing something like this where I can just constantly be stimulated by something new is really fun.
Yeah.
And doing it with someone else is great. So this is good life.
It's a huge, huge thing to be able to enjoy it together with somebody else. I think that there's so much of that we as a society tend to just be like, whatever, when I retire or, after kids or whatever, like we constantly are pushing it off. And Clay, I know you said like it's selfish to think about yourself, but like, are you really going to live your entire life for other people? Like, what are we really doing if we're not enjoying this life? And I do think that there's a lot, like even you guys following this lifestyle that brings you so much joy is inspiring other people. Like it is actually ultimately serving other people by you doing something that you want to be doing, by being in new places and allowing that inspiration to come from whatever, whether it's like a new adventure or a new destination or whatever, but it's, it's the people that we see along the way. Like, I don't know, from the sounds of it, you guys are getting to actually interact with a whole lot of people in your adventures. And what a gift. Like, how else would you have met them if you didn't put yourself out there?
Right.
I think it's pretty cool. I'm inspired.
Yeah. What is the van life community like?
That's a good question. We don't
curiosity.
know. I'm trying to think. We've met like maybe a half dozen, maybe. We spend a lot of time around cities. So we have an addiction at the gym. And so we have to be within a proximity of, we use Crunch Fitness right now. If they want to sponsor us, that's fine. I would allow that. But
we'll make sure to send them a link to this podcast.
Nice. Yeah. Most van lifers tend to be on like Bureau of Land, BLM land, because you can stay there for like 2 weeks, and it's super cool. But usually BLM is not anywhere close to a crunch. And if we drop in at like a small town gym, it's very expensive. It adds up pretty quick. And so we tend to kind of fall into, I guess, more retirement-esque folks.
Yeah, we talk to a lot of older people
Yeah,
on the road.
which are a subsect of van life in their own
Totally.
right.
Totally.
But yeah, I'm trying to think of, we met a cool couple from Quebec that rode bikes in the White Sands. They drove a lot. They had driven from Quebec City to Las Cruces, New Mexico in like a day and a half, I think.
Mm.
And then they were still going
Nice.
to keep driving into Arizona like that night. And so like I was floored. That was a lot. That's too much. I think we max out at like 6 hours is like a big day for us. So anyhow, and then where else we were in Sedona. There was a lot of van life that we ran into at the parks, and it was kind of funny because it was a super busy area, and you have uh a lot of very wealthy people in Sedona who are vacationing. I remember listening to some folks who were very upset that there was not running water at the pit toilet, and they couldn't wash their hands, and the hand sanitizer was out, and he was having a day. He was gonna give up his like tiny bottle of water that they had brought to wash his hands. Anyhow, and so there would be those people, and then there would be like people from British Columbia who lived out of their like little schoolie, and were more used to roughing it. So it's cool to see how people travel and what different styles of it there are. So there's a big spectrum.
But in general, everyone that we've met on the road that does van life or something similar is very nice and like wants to talk to you about van life or show you their van or ask you questions about yours. So
Yeah,
you have immediately something in common, which is cool.
And you probably haven't talked to somebody for a long time, and so they do want to talk to you, which is fun.
Also true.
Yeah,
Some diversity in conversation.
yeah.
That's awesome. So I know you mentioned that there's some really great things about being able to get up and go and just kind of be somewhere beautiful on a whim. But you've also mentioned that it's not necessarily the picturesque thing that we see on Instagram or YouTube all the time. So can you talk with us a bit about like the challenges of pursuing this kind of lifestyle and pursuing the things that make you feel lit up?
Yeah, I mean, on like a very practical day-to-day level, our challenges are like, where are we going to sleep tonight, and how much water do we have left, and when do we need to go get more water, and where's the nearest crunch so we can take a shower because it's been too long or something like that. Those are things that like when you live in a house, you don't think about how much water is left or like where that's going to come from.
True.
And you always have your bed to sleep in, and we have the bed, but we just don't know like what city streets can we park on without getting a ticket or getting a knock on our door, or like what Walmarts allow parking. And we try to do as much camping as we can for free. So like last night we stayed in a campsite, we paid like $20, but that's like pretty rare for us. And when you get something like that, you get, dedicated space, but it adds up if you try to do it every night. So trying to find places where it's legal to do that and you feel safe. That's like logistically very challenging, but those are things that we're learning how to do. So
Yeah, there's a lot of like background paranoia in a weird way. Like we might, it might be okay for us to sleep there, but then like there was a car that drove off. We were parked by like an apartment complex, and at like 11 o'clock at night, somebody gets in their car and drives away. But it sounded like when their door opened and shut that it was our door that opened and shut. So then you sit there for like an hour and you're just like, somebody out there, like, what's going on? I don't know. And that just depends on the area that you're in. The other challenges, like there's the water, there's the waste, like TMI, but like our toilet fills up eventually and then we got to go get rid of it. And so we try to find like either like a porta potty or just like a public restroom and then go, flush it down the toilet or whatever. But you also don't want to get in trouble for doing that. Like it's the same thing going into the toilet, but like is it dumping? I don't know. And so there's, kind of trying to like hide certain things that is a pain. You don't want to like be intrusive or get, I don't know. There's a feeling of like you don't want to take up too much space. Like if we're at a park for too long and like, it's like people are gonna start to wonder why that white van has been here all week. So then we move on or whatever. But yeah, those are some of the like day-to-day challenges. That's a big truck.
Can you hear that truck in the background? Sorry.
Oh, that's
good.
all right.
Okay. Anyhow, there's some day-to-day stuff. And that just depends, and it changes from area to area. Like one city, one part of that equation might be super easy, and one part might be more complicated, and you never really know until you're there. You can try to do research online. There are some apps and some other like resources to look at, but that might have changed in the last 6 months, depending on like what locality you're in. So
Yeah. And then like preparing to leave, what was it like last year?
Mhm.
It felt like every step of the way there was like something or someone that was like kind of questioning what you were doing. And it was like, is this really a good idea? Like, you guys aren't married yet. Do you know if you're going to be okay in a space that's, 80 square feet together for how like an indefinite amount of time? Like, is this actually a healthy thing for your relationship? And so that was hard to like hear other people have those doubts sometimes. I mean, it was good. I mean, good for them for saying something and like being concerned about us. But it was also kind of, it didn't seem like everyone was super on board with our idea at first, which it's a weird idea. So it can be hard for people. I can understand.
Yeah. I'm curious how you guys navigated that when you felt like you were being questioned, or, people who obviously love you and care about you and want the best for you. Like, yeah, how was that for you guys?
A lot of it, like to some degree, it was a nice exercise in if you could answer all of their questions, it made us feel prepared of like, yeah, this is a good decision because like these questions are easy to answer. And so and we did a lot of talking. Like we I wow, hours were spent, exploring what we thought were the important things and like the decision behind it. And so when people would ask the questions and we had already talked about those types of things, made it really easy to navigate the conversation with ease. The interesting part was like you would answer all of their preloaded questions and then they would just come up with all these random things, trying to like, prove you wrong or whatever about it. And I was like, okay, like you're not super worried about, I'm not going to change your mind about how you feel like this. The funny thing was as we got closer to it, you would see a shift in the types of conversations you would have. And so it went from, you haven't thought about this, like where are you going to sleep at night? It's like, okay, that we've thought about, some of the logistics here, and to a little more excited about it, like when are you leaving, have you thought about this? So then it would switch to like you should do this for your van, or you should add this feature, or you should there was some stuff, stuff about roof racks or little traveling knickknack things. And so that was fun, but that's also like almost the equivalent of like too much advice. And so again, it was just kind of like, okay, neat. And like some of the ideas were really good. Some of them were really dumb, but that's fine. We get the same thing for like traveling where it's like, you have to go see this place. And it's like, well, states are large and that is 8 hours that way. And so we're probably like, maybe, but whatever. Anyhow, so just kind of answering the questions and like realizing that either people have their best interest or your best interest in mind or like at the, at heart, or there's to some degree like some sense of jealousy, like it's not fair that we do get to do this. That comes up a lot in like subtle ways, and so keeping that in mind like allows us to have a little bit more compassion when people are either giving advice or questioning what we're doing. That's usually I feel like the two spots that are a little rougher. So
yeah, like you gotta take the meat and spit out the bones kind of a thing.
Yeah.
Like, take what's going to be beneficial and it's going to propel you guys forward for the decision that you've made, and then just get rid of the rest.
Yeah.
On a romantic, I don't know, note, in the end, it ends up just being us. So like whatever happens around the van, like as long as we're on the same page, that makes it a lot easier to navigate those like tough
Mhm.
spots. So
Totally. I think that that's like a huge pearl of wisdom to just learn in life. Like at the end of the day, you are the one living your own experience in life. And like you two collectively are choosing to live in the van together. But like
Mhm.
nobody, I think it's really often quite hard. Our society really does love to just give each other massive advice. You know, from my experience, this is XYZ, so you should probably do the
yeah,
same thing. But like in
Mhm.
reality, none of us are having the same experience. And
no,
though they might care so deeply about us, if we don't honor our experience and stand in the like in our own authenticity, uh what the heck are we doing? You know,
Yeah.
like again, going back to like living our life for somebody else. So I'm proud of you
Mhm.
guys for standing strong in that. And I love that it almost gave you like more certainty about what you're doing, you know, being able to answer those questions with certainty and not just get all defensive and like, I don't know, we'll figure it out on the way. But like it got to be an opportunity for you guys to grow closer and grow more certain in what you're creating. I think that's amazing. So many pearls of wisdom. But I would love for you guys to share, each of you, one encouragement or wisdom nugget that you could give to anyone who is really desiring to live a life that fully lights them up. Do you guys have any? I know you do.
I think what allowed us to do this, we kind of talked about it before, but we like laid out a plan. So we knew what we wanted to do, and then we kind of decided on a date or like a certain time that we wanted to have this accomplished by, and then we broke it down into like small tasks or like more bite-sized pieces that we could actually do on a daily basis or on a weekly basis that would actually get us to this goal. Because it was kind of a big ask of saying like, oh, I want to move out of my house and live in a van. Like that's a really big task. But if you break it down into like, I want to go to this website and look at vans and like figure out what my budget is, like that's a much smaller, more manageable thing to do. And if you do enough of those things, you'll eventually get to your goal. And it's, I think, also realizing that it's going to be a little bit difficult or uncomfortable. And you know, if you just like keep working at it, you'll eventually get there. Or decide that you don't want to do it maybe once you get partway through. That's okay. I think if we had bought the van and taken a few trips, and if they had gone like worse than they did and we decided we didn't want to do it, I think that would have also been like okay to shift gears. So just kind of like pivoting when you need to.
Yeah. Solid. Great advice.
I'm a planner.
lots of plans.
I make lots of plans, lots of to-do lists.
I think if you're doing it with a partner, that's like another layer of stress. I mean, there's obviously there's a benefit of having two people attack one thing, which is nice. But it does get really stressful, especially when you're pursuing like a financially risky thing. And so one thing that we try to do as a unit is recognize like when things are like when we're grumpy with each other or just in general, it's like targeting what's actually making us grumpy. And usually it's not the other person. It's like we're sleepy or you're stressed out
Hungry.
because you don't know where you're going to sleep that night, or you're hungry.
Mhm.
You might just need a nap or whatever. And we try really hard to, as soon as we can, recognize it and then try to fix it or at least verbalize like, I can't talk like, you know, I'm socially worn out or whatever it is. And so we table it until the problem is solved. And maybe that's the next day or just in a couple hours. And that goes so long to get through some really hard challenges. So being patient with yourself and others is nice. And that also, I mean, on the note of a big, hairy goal, it's like looking at not what's going to stop you from pursuing it, whether, you know, if you're like having a really bad day, like it's really easy to see that things are impossible. And instead looking at like, okay, what's it going to take for me to look at this in a new light or shift gears a little bit to approach it differently? And so even on the day-to-day basis, like that might be like, okay, cool. Like I'm really depressed about something that was really exciting yesterday. Just take a moment, like take a nap, eat some food,
Mm-hmm.
do some chores, and then the next day you'll probably still be excited about it. So that goes a long way, I think.
Yeah, that's solid. That's such a great practice. Very practical way to get back to, you know, taking steps forward to pursue your dream or your goal. My best friend and I do this kind of thing, and kind of goes along with you guys doing van life. But we call it the dashboard check, where it's like we each know what is on our dashboard, like what gauges are there. It's like, okay, have I spent enough time outdoors? Have I had a physical touch, hug, kiss, whatever today? Have I drank enough water? Have I taken a nap? Have I had enough food today? And then, when things start to get overwhelming or exhausting, or you're starting to have interpersonal conflict, or those things that used to feel like, oh, this was so enjoyable, but now it's not, like, it's like, maybe it's not that thing, but it's like something else is kind of off. Something's low in the meter, or something needs to be adjusted. So it's not just like, okay, throw it all out, like, to, we're no longer going this direction, but it's like, okay, let's take a moment to realize kind of like what's really going on here, and then make some adjustments and come back to it. I think that's awesome. That's great advice, especially for living in close quarters, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Yes. Well, I'm actually curious how you get your introverted needs met in such close quarters. Do you?
Yeah. We haven't had any like moments where it's like, I can't stand someone being so close to me, or at least I haven't had those moments.
There are moments where like we'll get claustrophobic. So like right now we're in bed. If one of the dogs was also in bed, that does happen, like physical, like I need to actually move, and I don't know if I can or not. And so it's just like verbalizing that, and then you get up and stand and walk around. But I think I don't know, probably the longer activities, like going for long walks. Like she'll go walk the dogs in the morning by herself, and I'll set up like the internet and start the coffee and whatnot. And so we have like little pocket moments where we're like sort of by ourselves.
And when I'm at work, I talk to my coworkers all day long, so I'm constantly having conversations with other people. And so I think like I'm excited to talk to Clay at the end of the day, and like we'll have moments in between my meetings and things like that where we get to talk. And so it's like it's still exciting to hang out, I guess. I don't know, maybe that's just because we've only been married for 8 months, but I don't know.
No,
we really enjoy spending time together. So
yeah. Well, that's good. I'm really glad to hear that.
Not everyone does. We've
9 months into your travel. What an intense way to get married, though. Boom.
Yeah, it's true. That was one of the things that a lot of people were so worried about, of like road tripping with your significant other. And we learned that like not every couple gets along at all. And so luckily we do all right. It
is special, but I think that both of you guys actually like spoke to this already, how important it is to be checking in with each other and be mindful of what your own individual needs are. Like that's it's huge in any interpersonal relationship, but then like magnified when you are tiny home living.
Yeah. Every little problem
tiny
is
home
like
on wheels,
twice as large. Yeah.
I think I missed the fact that you guys have dogs with you.
Yeah.
As well?
2 dogs.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Not small.
Well, one of them's like 25 pounds. She's pretty small. We have a Shiba Inu that is always grumpy, but she's so sweet.
Oh my
goodness. Then a husky that is a mix with a Samoyed, so she's just like pretty furry. But she's a small husky. She's only 45 pounds. Luna, come here.
Oh my gosh. Oh my goodness. If you guys are not watching this on Spotify or on YouTube, you need to switch over now to get
oh my gosh.
Oh my goodness. Hello.
Hi, Luna.
What makes you come alive, Luna?
String cheese.
Yum.
String cheese is her favorite snack.
That's amazing.
All right, she's done with her.
Yeah, that's fair.
Her little podcast debut.
Yeah. But it's honestly, it makes van life so much more fun because you have an excuse to go outside and go. You have to walk the dogs. You have to let them out. And sometimes when you're comfortable in the van, you don't want to get out and run around and do stuff. But they need to go outside, and you go out and you're like, oh, this is really nice outside today or something like
Aw.
that. But this is Sasha.
Hey, Sasha.
Hello, Sasha.
She's the queen of this
Hi.
van. So
Yes.
she does
Oh my
whatever she
gosh.
wants.
Of everything. She's her little tail. Oh my
Love
gosh.
it.
Oh.
Do they bring a little bit of added security to you guys being out and about, like on the road? But
Yeah, I mean they're not aggressive dogs, but Sasha will
Sure.
bark at anything. So, and if if you're in a van, if you were to break into someone's van and you heard a dog barking inside, like you wouldn't want to touch that. So she
Yeah.
definitely helps with her really polite barking that she does.
Thanks,
to
Sasha.
everyone. Yeah, thanks, Sasha.
just a warning sign.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Better watch out. My gosh. Well, thank you, Clay and Ashley, for being here today, for sharing your story, your journey, and your hearts really with us. I love hearing about this stuff. It really lights me up just to get to hear about
Mhm.
all of your adventures, and getting to follow you on Instagram is so much fun. But hearing, I don't know, what it was all like is definitely inspiring. And I'm certain that our audience has been inspired. And if anyone from our audience would like to connect with you guys at all, we'll tag you guys on Instagram, but you guys can reach out to us on social media. We're on Instagram and Facebook at Thrive Fully Alive. You can email us at thrivefullyalive@gmail.com. And we are on Spotify, YouTube, all the things, all the podcasty places. But yes, we would love to hear from you guys if there's anything that really resonated with you from Ashley and Clay's story today. And also, if you would like to be on our podcast, you can contact us on any social media platform, reach out to us on Gmail, and we would love to have you there. See you guys in a couple weeks.
See you.
Thanks for tuning in to So What Makes You Come Alive. We're so inspired by the conversations we get to have with everyday humans about what lights them up and how to love the story they're living. We hope that you feel just as inspired too.
Interested in getting in on the inspiration? Click the link in our Instagram bio at Thrive Fully Alive and select the option for The One About You, Be Our Guest. Remember to tune in each week for a new episode where we explore what it looks like to get back to living our best story, where we hope that your favorite story becomes your own.